All right, good evening. Welcome to the February 3rd, 2021 meeting for the Village of Cambridge. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I hope everybody's been doing well. January flew right by. We do have a guest with us tonight via the internet. So Jim's going to pop him on. We have with us Cambridge Valley Rescue Squad, Mark Spezio, and he came tonight to give us a little update and info about the rescue squad. They were going to do it last spring, and then of course COVID hit, so we're going to do it tonight. So Mark, you are up.
Awesome. Thank you. You hear me okay, obviously?
Yeah, we can hear you. I can't see you, but.
Oh, you can't see me? I've got my camera on.
I see you, but I just can't see that far.
Yeah, the screen is too far away from the front.
Oh, okay. All right. Kind of weird. I can't believe it'll be 10 years the end of the week from the last time I was actually sitting on your side of the table. So
Wow.
time certainly does fly, but thank you for the ability to come and talk to you guys. One of the things that we're trying to do, we started with the concept last year, just based upon something we should do, is to kind of do an annual report to the primary local governments that we serve. If nothing else, just to keep you folks informed as to what's going on. To some level, we feel a little bit like we're the kind of the outside part of the public safety trio, only because we're not a municipal organization. We're not the fire department, we're not the police, so we're not at every one of your meetings to give a report. And but yet we are, as busy or busier than those two agencies, and especially over the last year, some really interesting things have happened. So I put the packet together. I'm going to skim through in the interest of time, skim through the part that looks like a PowerPoint presentation. I just did that so it may graphically look a little bit better than just a whole bunch of words. So, and also gives a pretty decent kind of foundation or guide outline as to what I wanted to kind of go over. So I'll try to be as brief as possible, and certainly, stop me at any time for questions. Hopefully I can answer them. The supporting information and the background information for the most of this is in the packet. The only additional document in the packet on the right-hand side in the back is the 2020 National EMS Trend Report, which does kind of back up a lot of the statistics and a lot of the things I'm saying about trends nationally. There are also trends that we're seeing locally as well. So here we go. First, budget and finance situation. It's always on everybody's mind, and whenever you go to talk to local governments, the money is always the primary focus. From a overall perspective, we're in pretty decent shape in comparison to a lot of EMS agencies. We've made some really good decisions over the years and continue to do so. We're stable financially, but certainly not without challenges, and I'll touch on those as we go through. Right now, our current budget, based on our expenditures last year and our budget that we've put in place for 2021, has us right about $850,000 in expenditures, which is significant. We're quickly approaching that $1 million mark. My guess is if nothing substantial changes, we will be at $1 million probably within 3 years. If there are substantial changes in how we need to operate, we could be pushing that as close as next year's budget. So pretty significant when we look at it from that perspective. When we break down our revenue, we get only about 88% of our revenue through billing, which is direct billing insurance companies for payment. I want to talk more about that because there's some changes and also some information I'm not sure everybody completely understands is how we get reimbursed for calls. I think everybody thinks every time the wheels spin on the ambulance, we're going to be making a bunch of money to offset our expenses. And unfortunately, that's just not the case. Only about 3% of our budget comes from fundraising. Now, that number did not take into account some generalized donations like in memorial donations and those kinds of things. That's truly that number is truly just from our fundraising efforts, our donation letter, our chicken barbecue, those kinds of things. But historically we run between 3, 5, maybe in some really good years if we have some things going on, up to 7%. But really, it's not a huge portion of that. Less than 1% of our budget comes from municipal funding. I know the village, we've never really gone to the village and discussed that. I think those of you that remember my days sitting in your chairs know that I'm not a fan of double dipping. And I think there's, if the town is going to give us money, then the village shouldn't have to give us money. There's no need to burden the village taxpayers when they're already paying for the same service through their town taxes. So that's kind of where we are there. I'll be quite honest, and I talked to the Jackson Town Board today, and I'm going to be talking to Cambridge and White Creek next week. That's poor. It's very poor when you look at neighboring counties. There's a significant difference in the amount of money that is given to EMS agencies and municipal dollars. One town in Washington County has actually stepped up. The town of Fort Anne is actually giving Fort Anne Rescue Squad $100,000 a year to operate, and they also bill for service just because that's kind of the nature of the beast. One interesting statistic is that about only 70% of our calls in 2020 were billable calls. So we did a little over 2,000 calls last year, but only 70% of them were something where we could actually bill for service. We can only bill if we take a patient to the hospital, or if the patient goes into cardiac arrest and we attempt resuscitation on scene and the patient dies and we don't transport, or if there's a traffic accident and the patient wants to be assessed and doesn't go to the hospital, we can bill their car insurance. We can't bill their medical insurance, but we can bill their car insurance. And we started doing that in 2020. So when we go and we do lift assists, or we go when we do an assessment on a patient and we don't take the patient to the hospital, or we're called and the call's canceled en route, or a standby, those are all non-billable for us. But the expenses, obviously, the overhead is still there. So a little basic on financing. Our payer mix. I'm sorry.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, sure, Steve.
So your budget is $850,000 or about that.
Yes.
Do you know what it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago? How much has that increased over the last 5 or 10 years?
I should have that right handy. I believe it's gone up pretty substantially. The 2015 would probably be the best barometer for it, and I believe we're probably about $500,000, give or take. Then we've seen a pretty substantial increase in volume and workload since 2015, 2016. So, it's steadily increased. I mean, if we go back 15 years, we're talking probably around 300,000. So, it hasn't.
Go ahead, please. Sorry.
I say it hasn't had a huge spike in the last 3 or 4 years. It's hovered between that, maybe $100,000, but no substantial, real substantial increase. Gotcha.
And do your revenues equal expenditures?
Yeah, we make sure our budget balances before we put it in, and just because we don't want to dip in. We do have some savings, but we need to keep that savings for capital expenditures. So, we don't want to dip in. We don't want to present any budget internally that's going to automatically run us in the red. So how do we do that? We anticipate our revenues. We make sure that just like the same principles you guys balance your budget, we use. We use to balance ours. So,
Gotcha. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So on the right side of the packet, the first few pages are some data from our billing company. And one of the things that's really kind of a good piece of data is our payer mix. And you'll see some historical data there. Over the past 10 years, there's been a big transition between the number or the percentage of our payers that had commercial insurance to the number of our payers that are now Medicaid or Medicaid HMO payers. And that's significant. Right now, in 2020, we were at 25% of our payers being Medicaid patients. Medicaid reimbursements, if we have a significant call, a call where we have a paramedic on board, where we're doing, a variety of different tasks, and even if we transport them as far as Glens Falls or to Albany Med, we lose money on a Medicaid call. It just doesn't, even on just the base expense, even just on the supply and personnel and gas for the ambulance expense, we're just breaking even or losing money. And then when you compare it to, our general overhead, it's a loss leader. So that the more that number increases, the bigger of a financial challenge it is for reimbursement. Washington County as a whole, and there's a big packet in there that comes directly from the state. Out of the 58 states or 58 counties in the state, Washington County ranks 53rd or worst in every ambulance billing category. In fact, the mileage reimbursement rate has not been changed in Washington County since 1988. I graduated from high school in 1988, and you can see just how gray this face is. So, that was a long time ago. The county has a role in setting those rates. In 1988, there were no advanced life support agencies in the county. There were no paid EMS providers in the county, and it was a hospital in the county. And so, again, times change and those things change. The Medicare reimbursements haven't changed a whole lot over time, and the percentage of payers haven't changed over time. There's another sheet in there that explains how we get paid by Medicare. So just because we might bill at X, we cannot bill any additional. The only thing we can bill a Medicare or a Medicaid patient is if for some reason they have supplemental insurance. We can then bill them, but we can only bill them for a certain percentage. So even though Medicare allows a certain rate, they will only pay 80% of that rate. And then it's up to the insured to pay that extra 20%. And, we don't hard bill. And I'm not so sure we would get our board of directors to even consider hard billing. We just don't want to take the 85-year-old woman that needs to go to the hospital because she's sick and have her take her to collection over an ambulance bill. And it's really not what we're after.
How much revenue would you say you lose every year because of that?
So based upon our actual billing rates and what we get reimbursed, we get about 56% of what our total billables are.
Right.
The thing, yeah. So, that includes our no pays, and certainly we're billing a whole lot more money than what Medicaid is paying us or Medicare is paying us. But because we're contracted with them, we can only accept what they pay. The only thing we could ever go after, like a Medicare patient for, would be that 20% difference. And then fundraising in 2020 was obviously COVIDized. Our donation letter did well. But our general fundraising, we certainly didn't do our chicken barbecue and that kind of stuff. We were fortunate right in the beginning of the pandemic. I reached out to the McClellan Foundation and said, hey, look, call volume is going down, expenses are going up. And they wrote us a midterm grant. They wrote each one of the 4 rescue squads in the area a midterm grant for $10,000, no questions asked. Use it for COVID response. That was amazing. We also got CARES money, and we got a PPE loan as well, or grant actually at this stage of the game. So that helped us tremendously last year with expenses and with some of the PPE expenses that we had to do. So. Moving along on the expense page on page 4, some of the challenges we've run into, the fuel expense. We were getting our fuel just like you guys were, the gasoline at the county. When we had to go local, because we are not a municipality, we could only get generalized fleet cards that could be used at all the different, filling stations. The problem is none of the companies, and we have researched it high and low and spent hours doing it, we cannot get reimbursed our taxes. Even though we're a 501c3, NFP, those companies do not do it. We cannot get reimbursed our taxes. So we're paying at the pump the same thing that we're paying to put in our personal vehicles. So that's anywhere, about $1.40 a gallon more than we were paying for fuel. Ambulances get 12 miles a gallon, and that's actual move. There's a lot of idle time with ambulances. So that's a pretty substantial increase. It's about a $2,000 increase from 2018 to 2020, and gas prices had gone down. So now that gas prices are going up, that's going to be an even bigger hit. I will say on the positive end of that, Supervisor Skelly from the town of Jackson today is going to take that back to the board, the county board, and see if we can be given the same cards that the county vehicles have, and then they would just bill us like they used to bill us for gasoline. That would be a huge help. Other expenses, staffing. I'll talk about this in a few minutes in more detail, but the increase for more paid staffing is there. Staffing increase has called down, and volume has gone up, and volunteer availability has gone down. Number of volunteers hasn't gone down. Volunteer availability and volume has increased. And we also need to remain competitive with our wages. Our EMTs are just a tick over, the new minimum wage areas. And we have to stay competitive because the market's out there, and, people can leave in a nanosecond. And, outside of the geezers like me, there's not a lot of people that have a ton of loyalty. They're going to look for what they can help their family or support their family with. And then our other, expense kind of challenges are certainly our capital expenses. And, a brand new ambulance now is over $200,000. And we have some facility issues I'll hit on here quick. Without going into a ton, because I know you guys are pretty limited on time, and I'm probably getting close to the time that you've got allotted for me. The 2020 statistical data is in your folder. It's on that left-hand side. It's a pretty big report. We were at a little over 2,000 calls again this year. We were a slight tick lower this year than we were last year, about 20 or 30 calls lower. But June and July were two of the slowest months that we had in the past 5 years. And that was directly related to COVID. People just did not want to go to the hospital. Didn't matter what was wrong with them. They weren't going to the hospital. Certainly that rebounded. And now, even with the big surge that we've had in January, if you have a sniffle, and I wouldn't say people are abusing the system by any stretch of the imagination, but certainly our volume has gone back to where it normally was, and actually is an uptick or two higher than that. But what you will see is that we do a lot of work outside of our general, Cambridge district, if you will, the White Creek, Jackson, Cambridge Village area. We are the only agency that has countywide operating authority. In other words, we have a document from the state that permits us to operate anywhere at any time in Washington County. We're the only service that has that. And we have the same for the town of Hoosick and Rensselaer County. We provide the primary advanced life support in Rensselaer County or in the town of Hoosick. So our paramedics jump on board their ambulance frequently. We also provide the primary mutual aid when they're not able to field a crew down there. And then we do a lot of mutual aid for our neighboring districts. And then one of the big increases in our volume over the past few years is the number of transports we do. Some of them are scheduled non-emergent things where we move people to the doctor's offices, as an example, or to appointments at the hospital that have to go by ambulance. And then the other big uptick is transports out of Southwestern Vermont Medical Center to higher levels of care. We provide that quite frequently. We did two today to Albany Med, one to the pediatric unit and one for a patient that needed an emergent heart catheterization. So not only Albany Med, but we go to Dartmouth, Pittsfield, Springfield, wherever the patients need to go. So that's kind of where our volume is. You guys can thumb through that. You'll see there's an outcome page, which kind of shows you what's, where our, what the outcomes of our patients are, whether they're transported or whether they have refused care, whether it's a lift assist. And that's where it'll show you the 70% that are billable. And then there's a chart in there where we're actually taking our patients. And you'll notice that Albany is a pretty common place. That's 42 miles. A lot of that is because of the moves we do from the hospital, but you'd be, I think, surprised at the number of people that we pick up right in town that want to go to Albany Med. And certainly, do they need to go because of their clinical condition? Probably not, but that's where their doctors are, or that's what they've seen on TV, so that's where they want to go. And by state regulations, unless we have a real compelling reason not to, that's where we take them. So,
but from a budgetary standpoint, that's got to hurt you guys, right? Especially if it's a Medicaid patient and you might not get that the other 20% they would have to pay out of pocket, and they can choose to go all the way to Albany.
Yep.
That's wild.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yep. And fair number of people, the VA is another one. If people have VA benefits, fortunately, a certain portion of VA benefits SVMC will take, but the rest of them, we've got to take them to the VA. They won't even pay us. The VA administration won't even pay us if we take them to another hospital other than the VA. So not only will they not pay the bill at the ER, say we take them to Saratoga, they won't even pay us. So yeah, I get it. It's the wonderful world of health insurance.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
The next page, page 6, is just a quick rundown of our apparatus status. We do run with 4 ambulances. We have one now that is getting a new motor put into it. There were some issues. It had 95,000 miles on it. A piece went on it. We tried to get it fixed. It just wouldn't repair. So instead of basically trashing and getting a new ambulance, we're spending about 15,000 and putting a new motor in it. Fortunately, Dick Dempsey does all of our work, which is around the corner. It's very, very convenient, and we're very comfortable with him doing that. So that's a good thing. And then what we've been doing recently is remounting ambulances, where we send them to the factory. They take the box off, they put a new chassis under it, put the box back on it. They update the electrical, the HVAC. They fix any rust spots, dents, repaint, any of those kinds of things that may be part of it, and get it back. That's about an $80,000 savings in doing that. We have 2 of them, and we've had no significant issues with them. A couple tweaks here and there, but they send mechanics out to us to tweak that. We get about it right now. We're using gasoline ambulances, and we're getting our oldest one is still in pretty decent shape. The one we're sending for remount, that'll go this spring. It'll be out of service for about 6 months for that process. But we're getting about 175,000 miles out of the ambulances without any major issue. And at that point, the chassis is just worn out. Just the roads, the mileage, and it's just worn out, and it gets to the point where how much money do you spend to keep it going as opposed to getting a new chassis underneath it. And our mileage reports attached as well. We did 93,000 ambulance miles last year. Our total mileage includes our first response vehicles, but our ambulance mileage was about 93,000. That's down a tick from 2019. But based on what's happening so far this year, that's going to bounce right back up. We're on target through the first month with hitting over 100,000 miles. And I think that's pretty much where we're going to land, between 95 and maybe 103, 104, unless, again, there's some substantial change in volume going forward. Physical plant on the next page. Anybody that's been in our building recently knows that we have highly outgrown it. We took occupancy of that building in 2005, about 18 months after the hospital closed. We ground broke on it shortly after the hospital closed, and we had no idea that we were going to go from 425 calls the last year the hospital was in business. When we took occupancy, we were at about 550 to 2,000 calls. And we didn't know that we were going to have 2, sometimes 3 paid crews on, people spending the night, all those things. We do lease a little building to the left of the doctor's office as you pull in to do training, and we house our advanced life support first response vehicle there. But we're out of room. We have 1 bunk room. We have 5 or 4 offices occupying 1 space. So we've got to do some things. So we've had some people give us some estimates on building an addition. They were ridiculously high. So we're working with the landowner that owns all the rest of the buildings on that property to look at some renovations and some things that'll be a little smarter. But physical plant is definitely on our radar. We don't have a place to store our 4th ambulance, and that's significant because this time of year we can't keep it in service outside. So little note on that there. The next page talks a little bit about our membership, our volunteer membership. We do have 44 active members, which is the strongest active membership in the county, and probably of agencies like ours in the region. We do have 9 on leave. 5 members are on COVID leave, where they're either their doctor or their family, because of high risks, have said too much exposure. And believe it or not, we actually have less exposure when we wear our PPE than the general public does, but you can completely understand why they've taken those leaves. So kind of a breakdown of those folks on that page. Some interesting statistics in the little gray area there. 13 of our members are in some sort of part-time or full-time schooling. A lot of nursing students. We do have 4 paramedic students, I'm sorry. So that's full-time schooling plus doing the EMS thing. The real interesting stat is only 23 of that 44 members live within the actual our first response district, and I included myself. Theoretically, I live in the Salem district, but I can throw a baseball and hit our district, so I figured it's close enough. But 23 out of that's only 52%. 11 of them, or 11 members live in surrounding districts, Hoosick, Greenwich, Salem, and then 10 of them live even further away. Why that's happening, to be honest with you, why do people come to CVRS? A lot of reasons. One, we have opportunities. We provide a lot of training. We provide a lot of opportunities for people to grow professionally. So people are attracted. We have an amazing reputation in the county, and especially even more so out of the county and the region, as being a top-notch, clinically competent, well-run organization. And people like being a member at CVR. So that's the attraction where people go. If we didn't, we would only have 23 members. So it's good that we have those other people. Changes in volunteerism. Couple of quick things, and Steve Robertson probably will, remembers the days where if you were a member, and I don't know if it's the same with the fire department, may very well be, but if you were a member and you lived in town, you had your pager on all the time. That isn't true anymore. So if you're a member, you may only have your pager on or be listening up when you're on duty. And so when there's those extra calls, when there's calls where we don't have a crew scheduled, we're relying on a very small group of people that are living in district that are listening all the time to grab those extra calls. So like overnight, we only have one crew on. Luckily, we don't have a big call volume, but there's only about 4 people that are even around and available to listen up. So those other people, they just don't do it. The other thing is people volunteer when they want to volunteer. On the scheduling page, a couple pages down, there's 20 shifts between Friday night at 6 o'clock and 6 o'clock Monday morning. There's 10 6-hour shifts. You need 2 people per shift. Only 7 of them are covered by volunteers. Volunteers just do not want to do Friday, Saturday, Sunday volunteer shifts, and we can't make them. So obviously they need to be filled. So some changes in the way volunteerism goes. I will say we have had a very good run for a very long time. Nationally, volunteer EMS it's dwindling. COVID has hit it really, really hard nationally. So that's kind of a thing. We're in okay shape. I'm not doom and glooming it, but it's something we need to be aware of. And the other quick thing on volunteerism is paramedics don't volunteer. We're very lucky to have the paramedics volunteer that we do. I teach at Hudson Valley, and I mentioned, talk to colleagues or students down there about volunteering in EMS, and they look at me like I have 8 heads. So paramedics just don't do it. So we're very fortunate to have those. Our staff data is there as well on the next page, and you'll see that we have 8 full-timers, one of which is on military leave. He's with the National Guard and will be gone until October. But some really kind of neat things on our staff to highlight. We have 5 New York State certified instructors on our team, which is significant. There's not many big agencies that can say they have that. And actually 2 of our paramedics are certified as critical care paramedics, and are former flight paramedics. So from a clinical perspective, you have some really top-notch people, taking care of folks. The next page is our minimum staffing requirements. Not going to hit that too hard. One thing I will hit hard is in that blue box in the upper right corner. It says that our call turnover rate in 2020 was 0.15%. There were 3 times in 2020 that we couldn't field an ambulance and somebody else had to come in and take a call in Cambridge. 2 of those is because we didn't have any other ambulance in service. All of our ambulances were out on calls. The other one was a second call in our district. It was there was actually a 3rd call in our district, and the crew there was one crew that was responding back to it, but they were coming from a bit of a distance because they were returning from the hospital, and due to the nature of the call, mutual aid was called and were there much quicker than we were. So I have no issue with that whatsoever. But there's agencies in our county that are hovering between 8 and 9% of their calls being turned over, and we're turning over less than 1/10 of 1%. Or I'm sorry, just over 1/10 of 1%. So that's pretty remarkable. And that's a commitment we made to the community when Mayor McClellan closed that. If you call for help, we're going to come. And we'll be there as quickly as possible.
Hey, Mark,
Yes.
I'm getting a high sign here that we're going to have to wrap.
Okay. All right. So you guys can pretty much read the rest of this. I'm going to hit just the COVID stuff that we have been doing very quickly. We are in contract with the county to provide a vaccination team to the county. And we have a 40-person team from 6 different agencies in the county being run through us and we're helping public health with doing vaccinations. And the secondary part of that is probably within 2 weeks, we will have a 16-hour COVID testing site up and running in our station. The last thing I want to end with is, we appreciate everything that you folks do to us or do for us, not to us, but for us. One thing I would ask, and this isn't for me, this is for my gang down at the station. This last year has been tough. I mean, it's been tough on you. It's been tough on everybody. It'd be nice once in a while just to get a note, an email, a phone call to say, hey, you guys doing okay? Anything that you guys can need, or do you need to talk or anything? The mental health aspect for our crews has been significant, and it's that nationwide. It would just be nice, I think, for them to know that, our local leaders and our local government is looking out for us. So if you have questions, my email, my phone number, where I am during the day. Feel free to ask.
Thank you. Thank you
Mark.
so much. We appreciate that and appreciate all the rescue squad has been doing in our community, especially over this last almost year. I know you guys have been busy adjusting to all of the COVID stuff, and you've done a fabulous job. And we thank you guys so much. Please give our thanks to all the members. And it's very exciting to see all the different posts and stuff in regards to you guys working with the COVID vaccine distribution. That's really exciting. And thank you guys.
You're welcome. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your meeting.
You too.
He has been here.
Right, well, good. So you got that to review, nice little packet of what's going on with the rescue squad. We will move on to the approval for the January 6th board meeting minutes. Pretty much all corrections have come back to Lance prior to tonight.
Yeah, I've gotten everyone's input has been incorporated.
All right, so the motion would read approve the January 6th, 2021 board meeting minutes as written.
Make the motion.
Steve,
I'll second.
second. Amy.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and the next one would be to approve the special board meeting that we had on January 14th. That was a very short special board meeting. We basically just had one task, which was to approve the resolution for the transfer of the firehouse property from the fire department over to the village. So it was a pretty straightforward meeting. So the motion would read approve the January 14th, 2021 special board meeting minutes as written.
You want to take it?
Sure.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, you can go on there. You will see our vouchers. Les has those in there. Les didn't leave any notes as far as any odd
There's nothing odd.
transaction
According
this month. Pretty straightforward.
Odd is relative.
The legal service, is that just normal serving the board, or is that something else?
We have two different legal.
Which page are you on
I'm
now?
on page 1 of 5, the Gerald Morris Baker, 1,655.50.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they send us a consolidated statement every month, and each of the different things that they're doing for us is itemized separately on that voucher.
Which I was gonna, if you could leave a note for Les, I don't know if he's on watching. When the bills start coming in from the attorneys for any legal fees that are pertinent to the firehouse, I'd like us to start keeping those separately so that those can actually come out of the capital fund where the firehouse project is
Oh, yeah.
out of.
Absolutely, yeah, we have
Instead of
special
our
accounting line
general.
for it.
Yeah, so they usually itemize on the bill itself what they're doing,
Mm-hmm.
so if we just separate out, so we make sure that all the firehouse ones are going, 'cause we do have legal fees included in the price for the firehouse expenses.
Hi, this is Carol. We have a separate file, so all the fees that are relative to the fire company are going to be submitted to you on a separate bill. Anyway, you won't have to go through the bill.
Okay, awesome.
Even better.
Awesome, which makes sure less programs them under the capital fund. Great.
Yeah, it's all under a separate file number, so it'll be a separate itemized bill.
Wonderful, thank you. Did Les give you a total?
I'll give you the totals. The total is $27,333.95.
Is that paid or unpaid?
Unpaid. And then paid is $17.80.81.
You say the paid vouchers again, 27?
The paid is $1,780.81.
Thank you.
I'll make the motion.
That's
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you guys.
So all in favor?
Yeah. Did you get that?
I didn't get
Did you
that.
get all
I
the?
got a motion from Steve, a second from Amy, and just.
All those in favor?
There we go.
Aye.
All right. We have masks on, we're mumbling tonight.
All right.
All right, January for me has passed by very quickly, with the number of my hours spent for the firehouse. I actually have in there, you would have gotten on top, let's put on top for you, the proposal from Empire State Construction Consulting. So last week, Robertson and I met with Steve from that firm to go over the proposal. This is for the project management. So we have CT Mail, which is our architect engineer, which they also did give us a proposal to do the project management as well, roughly same cost. But we also wanted to get a couple other companies just to look at. Typically, when we do projects, we usually have one person as our architect engineer firm and then a separate as the clerk of works. Or in this case, project management, because the firehouse is a little more in-depth than a regular standard project would be for the village. So we had another company that had submitted a proposal.
How did you guys pick these guys?
They actually sent it to us. They had been following our project in the Post-Star. So I had
Awesome.
received this actually back in December. They had seen the info about it. So yeah, and this, the total cost for their consulting services is $64,500, which actually comes in line with our budget. We have a budget rundown of each item for the firehouse. And this falls right in that range of what we wanted to be at the 64 mark. So that would include everything that would get us through to the home stretch of the project being completed. The project manager would be on site a couple days a week to make sure the contractors were doing everything according to the engineer specs, and make sure that all the companies had the proper permitting, et cetera. And then he'd also work with the architect, CT Mail, to make sure everything was getting relayed to the contractors. He also will help us put it to bid, and help us pick the best contractor to do each of the pieces when it's time to put it to bid. So that is what I'm looking for tonight, to approve the you have that on there?
Is this the only, like, do we have a comparison? Anybody else?
We have, CT Mail was just a couple $100 less, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that's by
and like Tom and I
standard.
had talked about, not that CT Mail will do a bad job, but to me, it's a checks and balances thing.
I know
I
that
wouldn't wanna have CT
conflict.
Mail do it.
Kind of a little bit of a conflict, yeah.
Yeah,
It's just to have someone else representing us.
Right in line with what CT Mail.
Yeah.
This guy's would be hired, his job is to basically watch out for us.
Clerk of the
make sure that
works.
projects- Yeah,
It's like a buyer's agent for
Yeah,
a home
everything's-
sale.
everything's being done to code, and that the contractors are living up to their end of the bargain, and
Exactly.
the engineers are getting the information to the contractors that they need.
Mhm.
Haven't you ever seen Office Space? He bends the specs from the engineer to the.
Well, I used to know it as clerk of the works, right?
Yeah,
Right, and that's what
That's what it's-
typically is referred to, except with the firehouse. Your proposal or your qualifications for a project like a firehouse are gonna be more advanced than a standard clerk of the works.
Right.
Because there's so much more in emergency services facility.
He's more like a technical rep. is what
Yeah, and
he is.
I'll read down, he submitted, I got the whole packet here, I didn't print off the whole thing, but I'll just read you some of the other projects he has done. So he's done 2 firehouses, the Elmsmere and Westmere. In the mid-80s, he was on the actually Cambridge Central School additions and alterations, Global Foundries, Adirondack Museum, Albany County Airport. He was project manager for that. Times Union renovation, Ulster County Fire Training Facility, Ostable Civic Center renovation, pipe collection facilities upgrade, Scribner Village Apartment. He put his most pertinent, but he has way more. He's a little bit older gentleman, has been doing this for quite a few years.
Would we get a chance to talk to any of the people he's worked with, like any of the municipalities, or did he include references or anything like that?
Well, I can always reach out to them, but I mean, if you're listing all these people, obviously every one of them is gonna give you a good report. So yeah, he's done quite a bit of projects. The Zankel Music Building at Skidmore College, he was the on-site project manager for that project as well. So this is definitely within his range of expertise, to get us through the finish line.
What is his name?
Steve, well, the company is Empire State Construction.
His name is-
Steve is Bishop, Stephen Bishop. He's the principal.
Bishop?
Yeah, Bishop.
I don't know if the contract stipulates it, but if the work goes beyond June 30th, 2022, would they pick up the costs of anything beyond that?
Well, he's the one to make sure that doesn't happen.
Right.
We'll send over the actual contract of what we're agreeing to. This is just to accept the proposal, and then once we accept his proposal, he'll actually send a written contract that Cara would review, et cetera.
So if you were gonna go to a motion with this, it would be hire Empire State Construction Consultant for on-site project representative services for the firehouse project per standard conditions listed on the 12/7/2020 proposal at a cost not to exceed $64,500.
Yes.
If you wanted a motion, that's what it would be.
Yes, it's very exciting because this was like one of the last pieces we needed done to be able to finally get it all. The goal is to get it out to bid here late February, so we can be ahead of many of the other projects that would be upcoming for
Yeah,
spring
we're
and
pushing much
summer.
past them, we're gonna be pushing into the following year.
Yeah,
I'll make the motion.
Okay, so we got a motion from Amy,
I'll second.
second from Steve.
any discussion?
Cara will be fully reviewing the contract. and-
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, just like every one we've done so far.
Yeah, so you might want to just add a contingency to the resolution that it'll be contingent upon, our review.
Yes.
I like
Yeah,
that.
that's
Yeah,
great.
I
Great
like that.
addition.
Yeah, or contingent upon contract review, because we actually haven't seen a physical contract from him yet.
Yep.
I like it.
I've watched 12 seasons of Law and Order, and it makes a lot of sense to me. So.
Dun, dun,
All right, so are we good with discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you, guys. We'll get that moving ahead. Also, like I discussed at last month's meeting, about some wastewater updates and our status as a low-income community. Like I said, we had lost that. And we had a fella, actually, I think there's only two in our region that two companies that do income surveys. And this one comes highly recommended and has a track record for getting pretty much every municipality he's ever done back under the range they need to be in there. So this is the contract. I believe I emailed you guys all this after last month's meeting. So this would be for him to come and do the total income survey that the state would certify. So the fee to do that would be $7,890 plus postage, because we would have to mail pretty much to every, like 755 households roughly in the village, and every property would need to get one of these letters to start the survey. And then after they respond, if those don't respond, that's when they start doing the door knocking. That's where Salem is at right now with they're also doing that because they needed to get recertified as well. And I can
What
just,
is this person's name and company name?
it's Dave Grasso, it's municipal consulting and grant writing. They're one of the few that does income surveys, or does income surveys that
It's in
are
your packet.
certifiable.
Okay.
Yeah, it's this whole proposal should be right in there. So he pretty much would be canvassing and return the necessary rate percentage per the state federal guidelines to get our MHI LOI back to where we need to be, and then certify that with the state. So I'll just read here.
So the benefits is, what you want this for, basically your grant thing.
Yeah, right now, we're not eligible for any EFC grants, we're not eligible for any hardship grants, we're not eligible for any CDBG grants.
And what's that? What's
That's the community block development grant, those are
And
the
what's the
state.
EFC grant?
That's that's the water one, isn't it? EFC?
It's one of them, yeah.
It's one of them. And it impacts our rate on USDA loans as well. It does not impact our FEMA, so thankfully we can apply for some of the firehouse ones because that's through the federal. So it doesn't impact our FEMA, thankfully it impacts your state ability. So basically, not only for us, but also from other organizations. I was talking to a member of Community Partnership a couple weeks ago, and they were briefing me on some stuff that they were going to be doing. They do a lot of CDBG grants in the community. All of our Main Street grants that they've received are CDBG, and this would impact our service groups as well.
Would this impact any of the grants that you're doing? Alex?
Oh, probably yes, eventually. So we don't have any, I don't know, but there's one that's in the process right now, maybe two. And I'm not certain about this, but I imagine, yes, like the community partnership, as Carmen said, this is a problem.
Yeah, I know.
So do you want a proposal for this one? A motion?
Well, we're still
Okay.
discussing. So let's see. Yeah, so here, to be eligible, you need to be 51% of your LMI to qualify for CDBG grants. We are at 57.48. Let's see, HUD is the one that sets these standards.
I don't know this, when's the review period, or like as soon as we produce the data, are we back sort of in the red, I
Yeah,
guess?
so the one that we had been under was from the 2011 to 2015 block
Okay.
of time, which was locked in, well, they were still going by those numbers even up until this past summer.
Okay,
When HUD redid those numbers,
Okay.
that's when the change happened. And it's not impossible for us to get back down again. But a number of things have changed. Let me find a.
I don't see how he can say that he can get us there. I mean, you don't know that until you do the study. But, I mean, that's.
Right,
what it
but
says.
he's confident we are based on the fact that our demographics haven't changed too dramatically. What has happened though, when HUD did their data survey where they reach out to a select population, the ones who responded might not necessarily been our low income families here. It might have been more, here, I've got the wording.
I mean, don't they go by data at the county? I mean, there's a lot of.
Right, we're considered 81% better off than everybody else in the county right now, whereas before we were considered a low income village. So they're gonna take the county data and compare Cambridge to that. Yeah, so let's see, state agencies change the data sets that they use every few years, and the ACS data sets indicate either one, more affluent people or households have moved into the village during the past reporting time frame, or income has risen, or lower income individuals did not respond to the HUD surveys.
Which is probably, the last one is probably pretty
Yeah, I
likely.
would think.
Could I, yeah, I
So
mean, we
how
have,
about a tree
the housing
survey?
market has boomed, houses have sold, and if you take into fact, just look at since 2016, there are many more newer, home purchases,
There are.
and there's more, newer
That's why our
people here since
assessed value's gone up.
2016.
So, I mean, our assessed value's gone up because, there's new housing, there's new, and that income level has to be higher in order to buy them. Well, I don't know that I don't see how he can say that he can get it back there unless, I mean, you're saying he's guaranteed.
Well, this way would be, you would be hitting everybody in the village to get true numbers as opposed to what HUD is doing, where they just take the average and then average you out based on the rest of the county. Here we'd have individual documentation from every household in the village. And then that would, yeah, you can't say beyond a shadow of a doubt, we'll get you low income survey qualified. But based on the overall makeup of our community, demographically, we still have the same number of apartment buildings, the same number of low-income senior citizens, stuff like that hasn't fluctuated that much. So, which is what I wish Salem was closer to being done to their survey so I could see how it worked out for them. They went ahead and did the
Is he doing
survey.
a survey?
I'm not sure, I can ask Sue.
And then what's his time frame?
Let me put it in there.
It just seems, I don't know, it just seems like an expensive thing to do for data that seems like we can gather from.
But we can't just
Yeah.
gather, it has to be done, the state has to see it from a certified data collector. We couldn't just
I
go
understand
around
that, but
door to door and
the
do
fee
this
is-
ourselves.
To me, the fee seems high.
It's not insignificant, but I think if we got one decent grant, it would make it worth it. And I have some questions, but I think this is definitely worth it. But we don't necessarily have to decide this tonight, right? Like we could, if you wanted to have conversations with like Sarah Ashton is thinking a lot about
Well, I
this,
know
or
that I know we all
Yeah.
need it. I know what she's doing in the village also that's gonna be needed. Now, in your experience, have you seen this kind of thing before? I mean, you do a lot of grants.
I haven't, but it's like, it seems reasonable to me. Like the idea that it's really about how do you make sure we're getting the responses, So, if we have concerns, I think there are people we can talk to feel more comfortable about it, like Salem and others, but I think getting full information so that we can be accurately reflected and having that help our grants would be
Because we-
good for the community.
Basically need to go down 6%. 6% is the on.
So what Alex just said about, we might not have to make a decision tonight is a good segue for me to bring up my discussions with the guys at MSK Engineering and the wastewater project. So putting the community partnership aside, I realize that, they might need this income survey to go after grants as soon as possible, but in regard to wastewater grants, the guys at MSK Engineering they seem pretty confident that we do not have to do the income survey right away. And they would actually like to incorporate the income survey into their community outreach. So basically, if you guys got the document that I sent around, the big thing that they want to do is public outreach and engagement. And one of the parts of that is data analysis. And a perfect thing to throw into it, add to data analysis would be everything that is required to do an income survey. And they would be certified to do this. So again, I realize that we have this issue with the community partnership out there, but I think just so everyone is aware of what the guys at MSK Engineering are thinking and realizing they're not under contract, where we don't have a contract with them or anything. These guys just did this as a passion project to help us out and give us some ideas. But they're under the impression that we do not have to do the income survey yet. It's not an urgent thing.
It's not
In terms of wastewater
in terms
grants.
of wastewater.
Wastewater
we're not
grants, I
applying
need
for
to make that
wastewater.
caveat, yeah.
Like the community partnership, probably.
Right, but you have to remember, surveys take multiple months to do.
Sure, they take
Right.
time, they take
And
time,
It
absolutely.
may take longer now too because it's.
Because
different.
of COVID, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. You know, I appreciate what Steve has to say, and I thank him for gathering information, but I would like you to also, you know, I've been looking at this stuff for 6 years now. I've been mayor working on this type of stuff for 6 years, and I'm sitting here telling you that I think this is a good idea for us to move forward with. You know, I understand if you want to gather, you know, more information, or you want me to get more, resumes from people, I will. I will gladly do that, and we can push that off another time. But I would also like to take into consideration that, you know, I have been looking at this, and yes, while you've gathered proposals, which I appreciate your proposals, et cetera, you know, we were sitting in a position in 2019 to not even have to deal with much of this and already be applying for these grants now. And now we just keep delaying and delaying and delaying, and everything gets more expensive the longer and longer we keep pushing it off. So if you'd like me to get more income survey proposals, I will gladly do that. If you want to table this, I just want you to know the cost, the long-term cost.
I'd like to table it till March meeting.
I second that.
Okay.
And Mayor, I know you're gonna be busy over the next month, but I think it would be great if the two of us could sit down with MSK Engineering as.
Absolutely,
when
I
we
already
can.
had said that. I
Yes,
already said I
absolutely,
would
yeah,
have,
but,
gladly,
yeah.
absolutely do
It's,
that and get some
definitely
more facts and
yes,
figures.
yeah.
Um,
It's tough for me to play middleman because I am
Yeah,
just not well versed in this stuff at
Yeah.
all. And I'm afraid to say things publicly because I don't want people to take it as gospel. And if I'm speaking out of turn, that's what I'm really afraid of. So sitting down with these guys, yeah, it's imperative.
I
But
mean,
I know your schedule's stacked over the next few
Yeah,
weeks,
no, I'll
so-
try to pull a date here in the end of February to
Yeah.
sit down, but as I'm saying too is, we've been over this again and
Oh,
again
sure,
and again,
sure.
you know, 5 years.
Understood.
5
Yes.
years.
Yep.
So that's where I'm coming from, and postponing, you know, we can postpone income survey another
Till
month.
March.
You know, you wanna do that another month, fine, I just want you to know that that means we won't be ready for summer grants. For CDBG, for anything that comes up, when they release those in July, we will not be ready.
I feel better for March. We'll make a decision in March.
So that, we can do
I mean,
that.
I'd be comfortable now, but I'm happy if others feel better waiting till March. I'm happy waiting until March too.
February's a short month, so we're almost there.
Right, February is a very short month.
4 weeks from now.
So I'll get some more, I'll find any, you know, that's the thing, when you're in these specialized fields, there are a limited amount of professionals that do this.
Yeah.
So I'll just try to get more info on how many certified income survey companies are in the company, and here's their prices. Can definitely do that. All right, so let's move along. We have the approval, so Robertson and I met last week with Mr. Arthur Lee, who's been working part-time with Matt in the DPW. And we had the interview last week, and he has his CDL, so that would be wonderful. Things have been going well. So we're looking to approve the hire tonight. And, Steve, if you want to speak to the pay rate a little bit, because I know we had discussed that a little bit.
Yeah, that
from
was
what
a
it
discussion
currently
we had.
was.
The current, what we were paying our previous foreman was, what, 15.60 an hour or
Yeah.
something like
It was
that?
15 and change in the
15 and
legislation budget,
change,
yeah.
and that was one of the reasons that he had left.
We were considering going to increase
And
that
we-
pay,
we
we just
made-
had to wait to our meeting. I want to
Yeah.
clarify so that the public's not.
Yeah,
saying
we had the
just
discussion
pay
that we were
more.
willing to move up to what we found as a competitive pay, but we needed to get the board approval.
Mhm.
Individual was not willing to wait the 2 weeks till we had a board meeting, everybody knows that story anyways. We discussed it with this individual, he'd be willing to work at a rate of $17 an hour, for a 6-month probation, and then possibly bump them up to $17.50, barring Matt gives the approval that he's performed well through his probation. Looking at other villages and townships in the area, we really need to do that to be competitive. These guys can leave and go to the county, they start at the county 18 something an hour.
19, yeah.
18 or 19 bucks an hour, so these guys have their CDLs, the county's higher, and they're getting a $2 an hour pay raise just to drive up the street 2 miles and start working at the bar in there. And I believe Greenwich pays their staff 18 or 19 bucks an hour also. So to be competitive, we really need to bump it up to the 17.50 anyway. Discussion with budgetary numbers, we haven't been paying our foreman so far this year, so I think paying for the rest of this year at $17 an hour is not a big deal. And with our budget workshops coming up here next month, I think we'll be able to work it into the budget so that we can hopefully get somebody that's willing to stick around for quite a few years. That was one of my discussions with him was, these are the kind of jobs you hope you can find somebody who wants to, I guess, make a career of it, wants to be here for 10, 15 years, because you don't want to have that high turnover rate. I mean, Maddie's been here for,
18 full-time and 5 or 6 part-time.
I thought it was 73 years ago.
Yeah.
And you were 5.
And he said, he's a local guy. I mean, Steve, you might actually know him. I think he might only be a couple years old.
Oh, yeah, name's very familiar, for sure.
He wants to work in the village. He's got a family right here in town. He's married. So he already has a Class A CDL, which is,
That's the big
Yeah.
piece right
That's
there.
really good.
Yep.
I'll make the motion, $17 an hour, for the hire.
All right, so the motion from Amy,
I'll second.
second from ADS.
I don't mean to hold it up, but do you need to add in that 6-month piece, bump up to 785 after 6 months, or is
That
that
wasn't
just a
really
part of it?
stated as a declarative, but
Doesn't really-
normally
Yeah, I
you
mean,
It's not a
would do the
big
pay
deal.
raise anyway in June.
Pay
1st
raise
of
would
June.
be in June, so I think with the budget,
Any
just,
new hire has a probation period, don't they?
yes.
Yeah.
that is-
So that's what that is.
Yeah.
yeah,
Sounds good.
Good question.
So you do or don't want me to add?
no,
No,
you're fine.
you don't have it.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Congratulations, man, it's a man.
CDL.
All right, up next, some LED updates. So we did receive some, medical information from the Cherries in regards, to what's been going on, which I sent you all trustees to review that. So we are back here discussing where we would like to go from here. National Grid, I reached out again to them because it was August that they had made that offer of the 5-light conversion. So I had reached out to them just to see if that was still on the table. And Joe Pallone had responded that yes, it was. They will convert those 5 lights back for the price of $223.42, which would be the total. But he also states, as we've discussed previously, we are only going to change these 5 lights back to HPS, and at some point in the near future, National Grid will no longer be carrying anything but LEDs. So there will be a point where these fixtures will be replaced by LED regardless. So,
And we'll have to pay the full price of that replacement, I'm guessing. We got a deal when they replaced all that.
yes, he didn't get into the specifics
Right.
of whether it would cost or if that would just be their normal conversion that they would have done just anyway.
Gotcha.
So while we can do this for here and now, it is a short-term fix. It is not a permanent solution. So
Beyond our control.
yes, they're the owner operator of the lights. So that is still on the table. I don't know if, anyone had thoughts, suggestions, comments, please feel free to.
I think the important thing is that there was the medical documentation.
Yeah.
We needed that as just to move forward from any other aspects, any other challenges. It's just gonna be a policy that we need to always have. As a government employee, I always had to, it was a policy that we had medical documentation. And now that we have it, we can move forward.
Well, I have a few things on this. Number one, I have a list of about 10 things on this. Number one, we're setting a very, very dangerous precedent here. We are. We've taken the word of somebody, and you said we have medical documentation. It was a note from a doctor saying, hey, your husband.
Okay, let's not, or we can't actually talk about what's in
I know.
the document, but yes,
I know.
it was weak at best,
It
is
was-
what you're.
it was weak.
It was weak.
Yes.
I was not impressed with it. So we're making a very dangerous precedent by doing this at all. Number two, we don't own the lights. If they want to pay to change the lights over, then have them talk to National Grid to change the lights over. We told these people months ago, we are done with the issue. Have your attorney contact our attorney. Guess what they have not done? They just kept up with the insulting emails and then held information that we asked for them for 3 months. So my desire to help them is zero. So my opinion is we don't move forward with this at all. The only proof that they ever sent us that LEDs are a problem, like that she's describing, is studies from England. When we have contradicting evidence from PhDs at RPI that dispute the evidence that they've sent to us. So I don't know which one we're supposed to believe. I tend to believe the one that's a PhD engineer from RPI and the Lighting Institute. And really, the world is full of LEDs. And they can obviously sit at computer screens and type out emails to us, but 99% of computer screens are LEDs. All government offices are switching over to LED lights. I know that for a fact. So what's going to be next? She's asking us to take care of a problem that we can't take care of. There's LED headlights on half the cars that are out there now. So
And it won't be permanently taken care of. It'll just be till when they switch them over to the LED again.
So without getting into too much detail on the information that I read before, I just think that me personally, I haven't seen anything that says that we should be taking our village taxpayers' money and making a change. If they want to change, they can speak to the company that owns the lights and they can change it.
I understand that Joe Clone asked them to talk to us to get the permission. That's what I understand. He wouldn't change the lights based on just them asking.
Well, National Grid wasn't gonna change the lights at all, based on the information. But to be good neighbors to the municipality that they're in, they were willing to make an accommodation if we so chose. If that is what we wanted to do, which is where it came to being a policy decision that we would be setting. So this is the tough spot we're in because we aren't the owner operator of the lights. It technically isn't our responsibility. It is. This has been a tough one.
And then we did ask for them to pay for the lights, and they said yes.
No, well, they got
They had-
donations.
We did
At
ask,
least.
but there's
They had donations.
donations that came in, which we still have tabled in the safe here till we had some sort of.
But Steve, wouldn't you say that also sets a dangerous precedent too? Just
Getting
letting,
donations?
having people raise their own money to change? I'm just going along with your precedent argument, and I.
To have
totally hear
people
what you're
raise their own money to discuss something with a private company to make a change, that's,
saying. I hear you.
that's the way it goes, man. I mean, it's the free market, but, I just, what happens next when we have somebody comes in and says they're allergic to diesel fumes, Matt's gotta get rid of all his trucks.
We're on the same page. I hear you.
But what we were asking, I understand you said we were asking for their attorney to get hold of our attorney, but what we were asking their attorney to provide us was the medical documentation from a doctor. And that's been satisfied.
I mean, the only thing I did have with the documentation that was provided was, one piece was from the overseeing physician who did a diagnosis that we had received last year, and then the other piece is from a totally new doctor, which isn't the primary physician. That raised some flags for me as well, because why wouldn't you go back to the doctor who gave you your diagnosis to begin with to get your follow-up information? But, teach their own. I know, it's a tough one.
I just wanted to say my piece, and you guys can discuss it however you want. I know how I'm voting, so. I'll leave it at that.
Want me to read the motion then?
Sure.
I don't want to have to make a decision now. Maybe
I
after hearing
know.
Steve,
know.
I was so sure of how I was gonna handle this when I walked in
But
tonight.
you
Now I'm
actually
not.
met with them,
Here is,
Yeah.
and you told them straight. what
Yeah, he went to the ambush. He went to the ambush requirement.
here's the motion. Approve replacement of 5 LED bulbs in the vicinity of 9 Broad Street with HPS bulbs at a cost of $223.42, as coordinated between Mayor Bogle and Joseph Pallone of National Grid. Replacement conducted with the understanding that once National Grid no longer stocks HPS bulbs, they will be replaced as needed with LED bulbs.
I think there's still some questions outstanding, and we know that this isn't a permanent, long-term solution, but in the scope of our overall budget and in the scope, I'm comfortable erring. I feel like they've done what we've asked for now, and I'm comfortable erring on the side of if we can ease suffering, I'd rather make a mistake in that direction. So that's where I am right now. It's none of this is perfect. The relationship has been, none of this is perfect, but I want to do what is in my power to ease suffering and to make them feel heard, because for whatever reason, that's part of the perception as well. And so,
All right, so we have the motion from Alex.
yes, I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, second from Amy.
Any discussion?
I may just.
We might have to roll call this one.
We can do roll call. We can roll call this one.
Okay,
Run to
you want
the
me to call for the
trustees.
vote, man?
I go last because I'm the tiebreaker.
You
There's a
are.
tie.
So, Mayor Solomon, one
Steve's
moment.
gone. Steve's already gone.
Don't cut the baby in half.
So
whatever you do.
I
Okay.
know.
So Alex,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Amy,
There it is.
Steve,
No.
no, Mayor.
No.
I will say,
Vote does
after all
pass.
this, I want to tell everybody on this board that I really appreciate everything, and then Steve, you met with them, I appreciate everything you guys have done, the talking to them, the dealing with the emails,
Those emails.
the hurt feelings that I'm sure people have had, and that hurt feelings isn't the word I'm looking for, but, the feelings of being insulted and
Yeah.
degraded, so I'd want to thank everybody on the board for acting as professional as you did.
Absolutely. Yes, I second that.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you guys so much. All
And
right.
Mayor Bogle, you more than anyone too.
Oh, very much so.
Seriously.
Your name got
Yeah.
in the paper.
Yeah, sometimes you don't want to see your name in the paper. All right, thank you guys so much. All right, moving
Police
along. Am I still up? I don't
Yeah,
know where I
you're the
am.
police committee update.
Yes, police committee update. Okay, and then we can move on. So yes, so early January, we got rolling with Greenwich, Sergeant Danko, et cetera. Both committees got approved at the beginning of January, and the committee meetings were held on the 19th, 25th, and just this past Monday for the Cambridge subcommittee. So I don't know if you remember last month, I said each municipality was doing a subcommittee because we have one police department that we share officers and leadership of, but we're still two different municipalities, still considered two separate entities. But it didn't make sense to have one plan for one side, one plan for the other, when impacted the same officers. So Greenwich had their few meetings the last 2 weeks as well.
I'm sorry,
We
from-
do have them recorded, yes.
I'm so sorry, when did you say the Cambridge ones were?
The 19th, the 25th, and then the just this past Monday.
First.
So we ended up, so initially I wanted to do them like we do with our meetings through StreamYard, where we can live stream them and then archive them. But you can only have 7 participants on the StreamYard. I don't know if you remember when we were all at home, we had to have a green room for part of the staff to be kicked in and out when we all back when COVID hit. So we had more than that. We had, 16 on the Cambridge side. So I ended up I set up a Zoom for us to do, and we Zoomed them and recorded them and then converted them, and they're saved to the mayor computer. And now Jim needs to retrieve that off to be able to post to the website. So he'll get those up and posted to the website for viewing, which the most important thing is to view those prior to when the public hearing would be in March, but we don't have a date for that. So we held our 3 meetings, and we're going to be discussing with the mayor and the Greenwich side when we'd like to have our merged meeting, looking toward next week and the week after for the merged Greenwich-Cambridge meeting, which will also be all of us online together and then archived so we can post that online as well for viewing.
And you'll
So-
just have one of those, there'll be one combined?
No, there might be a couple depending on where the plan needs to
Oh, yeah,
be.
yeah, yeah.
So the goal is to have the plan wrapped up by the end of February to put to the public for public viewing for the whole month of March, to be able to have a public hearing via the Zoom. So I have to figure out a way, how can you Zoom a public hearing without having, the problem with Zoom is you have to send out those invites for people to get on the Zoom meeting and all that. Which is why we couldn't stream the Zoom live, because you have to get an invitation to be able to view it to begin with. So, yes. So it's a little tricky, but we'll get it. So the plan is to have that plan wrapped up and put out to the public for public comment. I will share, so the survey results and all that are on the website, which Steve, if the link for that is being blocked right now by the meeting ticker that went across there. So after the meeting ticker's gone, you can click on the button.
Awesome.
Which Greenwich had the similar results. They had opted to mail their surveys out, mailed it out to about 800 households and received 84 responses back. And we had ours in a mix of formats. We had it, you could take it right online directly, or you could download it to your computer and fill it out and send it in, or you could call our clerk and request a hard copy that would be mailed to you as well. So we wanted to make it as easy for people to get it that needed it. So if for those of you that did take the survey in this room, we had a few questions. So the first question,
How many
yes,
responses did we have?
we had 66 responses. 66, which is, at first it's like, it's only 66, but when you take,
Well, when you
factor
go
in the
through- yeah,
population,
yeah.
when you look at, Washington County sheriffs, they received 155, and that's 61,000 people.
Look at what the only
So-
good response rates for any mass mailing, and you'll get the idea.
Yeah. So 78% of those respondents lived in the village, 22 did not. 51% felt very positive about the police department, 20 somewhat, 15 neutral, 14 somewhat negative. And how do you rate the job our police department is doing? 38% excellent, 30 good, 23 neutral, 9% poor. How you rate the level of police presence, which this one actually kind of surprised me. 62% felt we need more police presence in the village. 30% said we have just the right amount, and 8% said we need less. And do you think that it's important for our village to continue to have a local police department? 82% said yes, and 18 no. And it goes on, does this statement reflect your feelings? I feel safer knowing that our village police department is on duty. 63% said yes, 20% neutral, and 17 no. And then they asked what are the most important reasons that we need a local police department, and they rated it as all over the board. The highest rating was 47% with crime prevention, followed by keeping an eye on activities in the village, traffic control, community policing, community protection, community events. And how often have you interacted with the police? 6% often, 8% regularly, 76% once in a while, and 9% never. And if you had a problem, how likely are you to call the police department? 52% definitely, 35% possibly, 8% not likely, 5% never. And then we also asked them to check off which training was most important to them. And based on that data, which you can look at because we had many different categories, the way those rank is pretty much what the committee has been looking at for training for the department. Is how, they feel, 43%, 44% said, mental health, or 23% said that, so that's what we've been reviewing in that. So that is accessible on the village website. You can go and check that out. Thank you to all those that did the survey. That was very important, very helpful to us, and helpful to the committee. Some of the respondents did leave actual comments, but those comments haven't been necessarily cleared for public consumption at the time, but the committee reviewed those comments, and if you watch the committee meetings, you'll hear us talk about the comments that were left. Very good mix, positive, negative. I mean, one of the questions we did ask them point blank, what is your most negative experience? So we were asking for what was the most negative thing, because that helps us. That helps us find where those weaknesses are, or what the perception may be, or an interaction a person may have had. So that was very good, and we got a good mix of community groups, which was really very helpful on the committee. A lot of great contributors. I hope Jim can get those up soon, because I want you guys to watch them. The longest one was like a minute or an hour 20. Would you say hour and a half? Our longest meeting out of the 3. So they're not terrible long. I think most are right about an hour, but it was still a really good experience, and we'll merge with Greenwich and go from there.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I'm glad to hear that the trainings or the support that you talked about is in line with what the community identified as issues. How do you connect them in terms of like mental health? Mental health, I think, was one of the most important things. Like, do you have a licensed mental health care provider who's addressing like what the training should be? Like, I'm sure there are more and less.
That's something we were talking about at our committee meeting, because actually there's very minimal mental health training, which Danko can actually speak to this. We'd have to find someone who would be considered someone who could train them on that. Yes, it would have, but most of all the others, so the other bias, use of force, all the other items, I actually reached out to NYMER, which is the village's insurance company, because they're the liability insurance company. There is an extra incentive for them to make sure our officers have training and supplemental training. So they offer there was about 25 training programs that they offered through them for free.
Okay.
So the game plan is to utilize that, because that is a huge cost savings. Sergeant Danko had looked at a anti-bias training program, was going to be about $900 an officer, which actually, Trustee Halleck, I asked him to do a little research too, and he found a company out of Nevada, which was about $125 an officer, a little better. But if there's the training like that is already available to us for free, that is huge, and it's all tracked. Like, each of our officers can have their own little account, which will track their training progress. And one thing to make of note, this training does not impede their certification at all. So, everybody comments, well, they need more training. Well, we're not the ones that actually set the criteria for what you have, how much training you have to have as an officer. That's Department of Justice. So we can supplement training, but this training doesn't make them an officer or not make them an officer if they don't take it. It would just be to supplement what they already get at the academy or through Department of Justice. So, yeah, it was very exciting. I was so excited to see, even training in terms of them as people, stress management and other resources for them, because their
Yeah,
job is
totally.
extremely stressful. So it was all, some of it covered the health and well-being of our officers as well, which was really great to see.
So I just want to make sure I'm clear on the process. So you'll meet with our committee and Greenwich's committee will meet next week or the week after, come up with a plan. There'll be a public hearing on that, a chance to revise it, and then it'll come for a vote?
Then it comes back to the board for a vote, and we adopt it as our reform plan.
And,
And then that has to be submitted to the state.
okay, and would it be, like, what kinds of things would be in it? It would be like, we're expecting like the anti-bias training or like more mental health, or is it gonna be specific about what the trainings are, or like what? how
Oh, it can
granular is
be,
it?
so that's the thing, with the lovely giant document the governor's office sent me. It can be anything your committee chooses to make it. So that's kind of where it's at, is whatever they see based on, feedback from the public is a needed measure.
Mhm.
It could be a mix of anything. Obviously, we have, lawyers involved as well, because you can't just make, there's some things that we probably couldn't do.
Right.
But District Attorney Tony Jordan is on our committee, because that's part of the requirement. He has to be on any of the committees in his region. So he's on the committee with us too, and is really great for the legal piece. Yeah.
So you did get guidelines from the state. Is that why you did
It's not
3 so?
guidelines, it's more of because it says right in it. This is not, this does not substitute your own individual plan. It's just more questions for thought, ideas
Yeah,
for thought,
Okay.
Do you have this? Do you have this? What type of policy do you have for this? Do you have, do you need more police presence in certain sections of your, cities or villages?
But
Do you
the
need
state,
less?
the state isn't saying that you need to provide more bias training to your officers.
You're not
That could
saying
just be
anything.
a part
That could
of
be a
your plan.
piece of it.
Their plan is far more descriptive than prescriptive.
Yeah. Yep, so, and basically the goal of it is to have, your police department together and say, okay, what was important to us? What do we have? What do we not have? What would we like to see more of? What do we need less of? And that was the basis of some of those questions in the survey, to try to get some of those responses, like it's not typical survey, what is your most negative thing that's happened? But we wanted to know that, that's what you need to have in there. So, yes. All right. Thank you. And we will move on to
Department reports, and there's nothing from fire.
nothing from fire department. All right.
But I think we've got quite a bit going on.
I
We've already
know, it's been
gone
a busy night. Let me tell you, January has been a blur. All right, Maddie, you are up.
Yeah, mine's pretty much short and brief. I finished Christmas decorations, we took them down. I have all the lions, I do believe, leaf cords and wreaths that were on the gazebo. I'm not sure if they're the lions or whoever for the Christmas trees.
The wreaths
Like the leaf cords, the power cords, are they the lions?
on the gazebo?
Yeah, for the gazebo
No,
for
I
the
think just
trees.
the trees are the lions.
Well, that's what I got. I got all them
Okay,
down my
yes.
highway garage, so if you want to contact.
I'll tell them
whoever.
to stop by, they'll get it.
Yeah, I've been doing, of course, the garbage, I'm plowing sand in the sidewalks, the streets. The police locker room and bathroom should be all sheetrocked and painted this week, and I'll have to contact, the plumber to install all the urinals and, water back up to the sinks and stuff, then that will be done. Other than that, that's all I got.
And snow.
snow, yeah.
All right, thank you, Maddie. Police report, Sergeant Dango.
Well, pretty much my month has been your month, but, and then times 2, because I have pretty much.
Yeah.
So, just to go fast, here we had 12 cases that were reported to the Department of Criminal Justice for a fresh year, so that's 12 for the year total. We had 9 arrests for January for a total of 9. We handled 34 calls of service for a total of 34. One more vehicle accident, 25 tickets. Below are the arrests that we made. And I just wanted to thank the committees, the community especially for, taking time to do the survey, and the community members that wanted to be a part of the committee and taking the time to be a part of that as well. And again, I can't thank the mayors and the police committees enough. I know they've been working really hard to put this all together, and hopefully we have something positive at the end of it. And to answer questions about Niners with that training is actually pretty awesome. It's something that we used when I was with the sheriff's office. It was a part of how we met standards for accreditation there. We took those classes and it documents it saves, so it's a great idea to utilize that free service. So I look forward to delving into that.
Are those annual trainings? Should you guys be doing that every year?
It's like a constant update from, the insurance company says, hey, this is a good idea, so take it.
Yep.
So it's not something like you'd say, January 2022, you take the same class
Same thing,
again. It's just whatever is constantly evolving and changing. They just dump it in there and you just log in, do it, and wait for the next one.
And we get breaks on our insurance rates for taking these trainings?
I believe so, because I know, well, Chief Bell was still alive. I think it was like 17-ish. He had some of the guys on doing, especially, when you have newer guys too, you want them on, doing some of the training because it did give us a reduction.
Great.
And there's definitely motivation on their end to make sure officers are, know certain laws, because at the end of the day, if anything happens, they're the one defending us and paying for if there's a claim, so, yeah.
I wanted to tell you, Bob, I got some great compliments on you, the way you handled the committee. And they said, I didn't even know half of the stuff.
It's you guys.
Yeah,
Honestly, I'm just there.
no,
I'm the body there
No.
for questions. You guys put it all together.
no, you have really opened the eyes to people, and I think, and I can see it's gonna trickle out, at least from the committee, and then when we have the public forum, to just see what you do and what you have to deal with. But thank you for everything you've done.
Oh, I'm here for that. So.
Yeah, not to bring up a past thing, but I wish more people came to those opiate presentations that we had. That was a
Right.
great job by those guys. Not enough people saw that stuff, but
Yeah. Right,
Yeah, absolutely.
education.
yes, absolutely. And yeah, Sergeant Pinker does a great job with that, for sure.
Mhm.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, you got Big Bill McCarty here, the assessors are. Oh, Utes? Well, they not.
Yeah, Lindsay included the form information in there. So we've got that. We're hoping here next month, the state will have, some things made up, whether they're allowing summer camps. They did allow them last year, but they only made that call in June. And that's too late to pull off a summer camp. You cannot linger until,
No,
3 weeks before you're supposed to do this. So
that's
we're
crazy.
hoping they'll be a little bit earlier this year. We're letting out information on that to be able to plan that, because I know a number of people in our community really missed that program this past summer.
Yeah.
So we will wait and see what the state says. And now our assessor, go ahead, sir.
So I filed the tentative roll, February 1st. Grievance is the 16th. And you folks hopefully will be able to join us as the committee. From
Wouldn't
six-
miss it.
from
I'm not going south this year, Bill. I wish I was, but I'm not.
From 6 to 9,
And what's the date?
The
16th.
16th.
Tuesday.
And it's set up, it's gonna be, phone in only by, owners. So the intent is for those folks to send in their complaint forms if they have any, first. You have those in front of you, and if those folks wanna call and chat about it, add information to it, give feedback, they can call that evening,
Okay,
on their phone.
and we should be here to,
Yes.
You should be here physically, yes. Each one of the change notices that I sent out, change of assessment notices,
Hmm.
had that process in the envelope. so they understand how to follow through if need be.
It's Tuesday, the 16th from 6 to 9.
It is.
All right.
And other than that, this executive session information when we get done.
Yes,
Okay, so your stuff for
we'll
executive.
have some updates for executive session.
For
Perfect.
zoning enforcement, no report because there was no activity this month other than one that he provided you some information on. So there's more to follow, I'm sure. You see the ZBA and planning board minutes in there. It's just placeholder minutes. There were no meetings held. And that takes you to attorney then.
Hello.
I'm sorry.
My only report is on the status of the conveyance of the fire department property. We've gone back and forth with the documents. We're in agreement on those. I've asked for the fire department's attorney to send us a closing package so we can get that wrapped up for the financing. That will also be on or before the 15th. We're working out the details of the final date on that, but I'm thinking it'll be the latter part of next week.
Okay.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay. Okay,
And
historian.
Sergeant Day, you
Oh,
had a
I'm sorry, I just
question?
wanted to add one last thing I forgot to mention. The mayor brought to my attention earlier today that there's a phone scam going on, that, it's apparently cloaked as a Cambridge number, and they're claiming to be the police department, and they're demanding for personal information, such as social security or bank information. And they're saying that they'll suspend your social security paychecks if you don't give it to them. It's a scam. I meant to post it earlier on Facebook, but we were kind of busy sending paperwork elsewhere, so I thought I sent it, but I didn't. So I just wanted to clarify it again, and I'm gonna go back to the office and hit send again. So.
Yes, so the police department would never call and ask you for information like that.
Yeah, it's always official mail and IRS or anything of that nature.
Which if any of you, especially employees, received a weird email from me this week, just look at those weird emails and see what the actual email address is. You'll notice it's some weirdo thing. So it's a Google account, which we can't block Google from our Gov email. So what they're doing is they're making up this Google account using my name, my title's mayor, and then sending all the employees or trustees an email saying, I need help with a task, but don't call me, just email response type stuff. So.
It almost got me. I was like, oh,
Jim-
sorry, I missed it. You're in a meeting right now. I'm so sorry.
The make to notices to you guys, I never signed Mayor Bogle
Yeah,
or Mayor
sincerely, Carmen
Yeah,
Bogle.
Sincerely, Carmen Bogle. So ignore those. Every time we do get one to happen, Jim does report that to Google. But
Should we forward them? Remind me, or I just put it in a spam folder.
yeah, don't, some people open them. I haven't heard anybody have anything weird happen to them after they open. It's just a phishing scam. They're trying to get you to respond. And
Coincidentally, I heard from a Nigerian prince not long
Yes.
afterwards. So.
So typically, if I really needed, any one of you, I would call you by phone before I would send an email like that if it was an urgent importance. So I don't need any gift cards or anything like that.
Although you will accept them.
Yes, yeah. One was saying I was, collecting gift cards for a village employee. That's so generous of me. So all right, library report is in there. And
Historian is in there.
historian is in there. Clerk, you are up.
All right, as far as vital records, did 29 certificates in the past month. You see the amount there. I have a motion on here to appoint election inspectors, since this is the day to do it. I reached out to Linda Record, just like I would say last spring, but I did in the spring, then again in the fall when we actually did an election.
Yes.
So she's ready to go again. So we've got Linda Record, Beverly Colomer, Judy Dupuy, and Bill Reagan as election inspectors for the March 16th, 2021 village election at a flat rate of $125 each. If someone would be so kind.
I'll make the motion.
Thanks, Steve.
Second.
Thank
Any
you, Alex.
discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, you'll see next, just some more of the deadlines for village elections. This is the week for me to get nominating petitions for those running. So far, I've gotten one for justice. So there's at least 3 more I'm looking for.
We're working on it, we're working
I
on it.
know, just passing it
You
along.
got till next Tuesday.
No sadder words than position vacant. Let's see, as soon as I get those all submitted, I'll be able to do a draft ballot, and then I'll put out notice to to the village for anyone who wants to file for absentees. And the most recent guidance that's come out from state, concern about COVID is a valid reason for wanting an absentee ballot. So much like the fall election we did, we are not only welcoming applications for absentee ballots, we're actually looking for them. The more the better. Let's see, court report. You'll just see a note in there. We need to set up a time for court inspection.
I was actually thinking about that about a week ago, so I know it's gotta be coming up soon, because Lisa always used to bring Christmas cookies when we do it. So
Yeah.
I knew.
I can mention that on the side. It tends to make an inspection go easier. Goes down easier that way. And who did it with you last time? Was it Amy?
I know I've done it in the last, but I don't know if it was with you.
Yeah, I've done it every
2
year.
years.
I've done it every year.
So would both of you be available on a given Friday, say Friday morning to do that?
This coming Friday?
Whatever works.
The following Friday that works.
All right, a week from Friday. All right, I'll try to set that up. I'll reach out to you and I'll reach out to you and
Okay.
set.
And then the next item.
All right, parade permits. We have 2 requests, 2 bicycle races.
So I'll explain a little bit. So these actually, one of them actually came in like 10 minutes before our last board meeting. So that's why Lance did not get it to be able to share with it. But I sent it all out to you guys for review, also to our attorney. It's an event that they're having at Argyle Brewing. It's basically a more or less kind of leisure ride. Individual start windows. They are not requesting any street closures, any traffic control, any police presence for it. They're gonna have it at Argyle Brewing, start and end there on Broad Street. So the bigger question, which we would need to approve, because they would be using our roads, and so we have to approve and require proof of insurance for them to do that, even though we don't have to do any road closures. I did forward this on to County Public Safety, and the county control room is gonna review this because the number of attendees anticipated
lot
is
of
between
people.
250
That's a lot of
and
people.
500 people.
Yeah.
It'll probably be the lower end,
Sure.
but still, that is not in compliance with COVID events
Yeah,
right
not at
now.
all.
What's the date of the event?
It would be May 15th.
A couple pages back.
So I did kick it over to them for review, because we really can't approve an event and permit an event that is breaking the COVID protocol. Although when I did talk to Tim Hardy, because it is, here's February already, if we kicked it to March, it only gives a couple, months before the May event to give an answer. He said if we did want to permit the event, we could permit it contingent upon compliance with COVID gathering regs for May. Ultimately, it will come down to County Department of Health, County Public Safety to say whether this event can or cannot really actually happen. But that is something that they would probably be doing with Argyle Brewing directly because it's being held on their property. Yes, sir.
Even if we went to the low end, how are we gonna have 250 people without any traffic control?
Yeah.
Well,
Because it's
that's
a rolling start.
Yeah, but I mean, you
Where are
got
they gonna park their
250
cars?
bicycles.
Wait, what?
Where are they gonna park their cars?
They're gonna have to park the
They're gonna bring their
car. So
bikes
here's,
to
That's like the size of the Vatican Hill, 2 of the Vatican.
Yeah.
so we do have, he's got the event planning description. It's a non-competitive bicycling ride starting and finish in the village.
Yes.
No street closure. All riders are expected to follow local and New York vehicle and traffic laws throughout the event. So basically, they have to start out pedaling on Broad, but they're gonna stop when they hit Main Street, they're gonna be like the people that bike through the summer you see around town.
They do a
100% outdoors.
They did tell me
They're gonna
that.
stagger so they're gonna individually within a 2 to 3 hour start window, so there's no mass starts.
Yeah.
So they're gonna schedule everybody's start and stagger it, so there isn't a cluster of bikes all together at a time.
They
And
did
then
a
they-
benefit race like that for breast cancer, and it's sort of like you start when you want to and run where you want to and end up here in this window and like print it out and get a beer. And I'd be interested in how the numbers, but it seemed very like low key.
Yeah, it says this, let's see, so they do say they may require a couple use of the parking spaces near Argyle Brewing to block a few of those off. But it's going on between 8 and 5, so you'll have your early morning riders that like the morning ride out there, you'll have your evening riders out later in the day. And it says the event will comply with and fully follow current guidance from the New York State Department of Health and the Governor's Office regarding outdoor events in New York State. The current guidance is here, and he includes the highlights: appropriate hand sanitizing, mask wearing in public spaces, health screening of all staff and volunteers, social distancing requirements. Let's say on the next page, he didn't mention the limit of participants, that limited gathering, and we don't have a number for it. I'm not sure where it's at for outdoor gatherings right now. It's been all over the place.
So what I'm hearing from you, I've changed the motion as it's written, and it would say approve the Great North Bicycling Ride for May 15th, 2021, between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m., pending receipt of insurance information and contingent upon compliance with COVID protocols.
Not just COVID protocols, COVID state gathering law. I don't know if it's a law or regulation. How would we word that?
Department of.
Well, how about contingent upon compliance with COVID protocols pertaining to mass gathering?
Yes.
Yeah.
It really can.
Because
Yeah.
that's,
I got a thumbs up from the lawyer on that one?
because that's set by the state. Department of Health doesn't set the gathering limitations.
To
Public
public
safety doesn't set
gatherings.
that. That always comes from the governor's
It's
office.
set by the executive order right now.
Yeah, yeah.
So what actually makes this a parade? If there's no street
It's a
closures?
very, very loose definition of
Okay,
parade.
because it seems like the cycling group that meets there on Wednesdays or whatever,
Right.
it's like a slightly souped up version of that.
Right, and that's why initially I didn't think they needed to come to us at all. When I saw it, I'm like, oh, just, you've got to work that out with Argyle Brewing. But our attorney did say because they are using the public streets
Okay.
for their event, essentially, that we would want coverage, and to be named additionally insured in case any of the cyclists did have an accident on any one of our streets. So while they're necessarily not parading down them, they are riding on them for a specific event. That's not just your normal driving car leisurely riding. It's a specific event.
They're more promenading than parade. Okay, so is that a good motion then? We'll put a contingent upon compliance with COVID-19 protocols pertaining to public gatherings?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were anyone to make said motion?
I'll make it.
Okay, Amy,
I'll second.
Steve.
Any discussion?
Can't wait to have parties again.
I know. We'll see. Maybe May this will be able to happen.
Maybe.
All those in favor?
Bye.
Any opposed? All right, and then the second one is from Rugged Racing for tour of the Bat and Kill. So I don't know if you remember Anthem Sport had sold off the tour to Rugged Racing. They usually have it in the spring, but they're looking to do theirs September 18th. They're still doing it like they have in the past few years at the county fairgrounds. And based on here, but the map that was included really doesn't show us very good how much of the village they're in.
I could ask him to send us an update.
Usually we get a request for that little stretch where they come down
Up the-
313
yeah, up the
and
Shum
10,
Pike,
yeah,
right
Main
down
Street, head out
313.
that way.
I'll ask him to send one, so.
So yeah, he said, Mark put a little letter in here, it says the event is currently being coordinated with Washington County Sheriff, Washington County Public Safety, New York State Police, and various village agencies in the region. Though we strive to minimize the impacts to the residents, temporary traffic delays can be expected. Notifications will be placed in local newspapers. Our organization will be responsible for cleanup on the public right of way or streets. We'll pay for cleanup costs necessary. So it's pretty much the standard, that little stretch that they use through the village. If I'm reading them, that's what it looks like on these maps, right?
Yeah, they go down a section of 22 by the
Yeah,
school, and
these-
just go up 313.
Maps aren't really the greatest.
I'd say we should put the same caveat in this motion.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll add
Yeah.
the same exact one at the end. So the motion will read approved tour of the Vattenkill for September 18th, 2021, between 9 a.m. and 12 noon, pending receipt of insurance information and contingent upon compliance with COVID-19 protocols pertaining to public gatherings. Anyone want
I'll make a
to
motion.
throw a motion? There we go.
A second.
Okay, thanks. Call for the vote then.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Subject to your questions, that concludes my report then.
All right, I think, unless there's any other questions, I think we're good to roll into executive session.
And motion would read, enter executive session for the purpose of discussing current litigation and other legal matters pertaining to the village. Motion from,
Motion.
all right, Steve,
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Tara, do you want me to call you?
Oh, sorry. Are you, yeah, that's fine. Are you calling Josh also?
I'm sorry, what?
Are you calling Josh also?
Yes, Bill. We'll have you both on speakerphones.
Okay, sounds good. I'll let him know.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
All
Okay,
right.
so you'll pause the video or
Steve, if you could just
stop.
kill the video and the. Oh, yeah, sorry. There you go. You know, a lot of time to think about that, right?
Turn it back on.
And unmute. Unmute. Okay. Should be.
All right, we are back. All right, just briefly, we handled some assessment issues and took action to just move forward with an appraisal for some of the issues that we need to get taken care of, which doesn't require a motion, but we just mentioned that at the end of our meeting. So the next thing is, who wants to make the motion to adjourn?
I will.
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? All right, thank you all so very much.
Thank you.
Just,
Don't turn it off.
I got you.
Still roll.